Hello, everyone. This is Oscar from Crunch Crowd, and welcome to this week's Funsize film review. So I just got back from seeing Morbius, which is the new Sony Marvel origin story film based on the villain from the Spider-Man comics. Yeah, so you might have seen that the reviews so far have not been particularly great for Morbius. I've not I've not looked up specifics. I've not seen the Rotten Tomatoes score or anything, but I do know that the reviews so far have been rather low. It's scored rather low. It's been reviewed rather negatively. While I will say it's not a terrible film, I will say it is pretty unremarkable, unfortunately. To start out with some positives, it's a perfectly serviceable action/horror film. The action sequences are pretty well done. They're a little too CG heavy, and the CG could be better, to be honest. It's not awful, but it's not jaw-dropping either. The performances are quite weak, unfortunately. Jared Leto as Michael Morbius, he's all right, but really there's nothing about his performance that really stands out. Unfortunately, that's the same with the rest of the cast also. Matt Smith as Milo, the main villain of the film, is pretty weak also. It's all of the characters are pretty underdeveloped, to be honest. I realize I was meant to be starting out with positives here, so moving back, it's paced well, it's paced well in the sense that it is engaging from, not necessarily from start to finish, but for most of the film it is a pretty engaging experience. However, that comes at the cost of really developing a lot of the plot threads and characters that I think really needed to be developed. The film is only about an hour and 42 minutes long, which obviously is much shorter than a lot of other comic book films that have been coming out over the last year. Last few years, really. And as an origin story film, I suppose that runtime is a bit more expected, but still, the film kind of swoops in, introduces some plot threads and characters, leaves everything a bit underdeveloped, a bit undercooked, and then it's kind of over before you know it, really. The film flew by. And I think, it was quite a quick film experience, really, and I'm not sure if it has really left much of an impression on me. I think it's ultimately and unfortunately going to be a bit forgettable. But if you are determined on seeing this film, if you're set on definitely seeing this film, then the place to do it is absolutely a cinema. The big sound and big screen experience is definitely going to, I feel like it might have, to be honest, distracted me a bit from some of the more glaring flaws of Morbius. The other thing I'd say about it is the plot starts out as a interesting but also kind of derivative Jekyll and Hyde adaptation in the modern day. It's not obviously a direct Jekyll and Hyde adaptation, but it certainly feels like Jekyll and Hyde in the modern day. There's a lot of differences from the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story, obviously, but the similarities are definitely there. Overall, I just think, I saw this with an Odeon My Limitless card. An Odeon My Limitless card, which, I pay $12.99 a month, which is soon going to increase to $14.99 a month, but I digress. I pay $12.99 a month, and I can see as many films as I want, as often as I like, which is their motto, of course, in Odeon cinemas. So, given that I saw this with an Odeon My Limitless subscription, I don't necessarily feel ripped off or shortchanged, but if you're going to ask me if I would pay a full cinema ticket price to see this, I probably wouldn't know. Especially when, if you haven't seen The Batman yet, Matt Reeves' The Batman, that is still in cinemas and is a pretty good film, if you ask me. I mean, if you want to hear my opinion on that, the Funsize film review for that film is up on the Crunch Crowd YouTube channel right now, so go check that out if you want. As far as a gritty comic book story goes, I would much rather recommend that. I would recommend that definitely over seeing this. The score's not bad. In Morbius, I will say it's it's again serviceable as much of the film is. It's directed by Daniel Espinosa, who directed a pretty fun sci-fi film called Life, which you might remember from 2017, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Ryan Reynolds, and Rebecca Ferguson. It's a pretty blatant Alien ripoff, but it's enjoyable for what it is. It again flies by pretty quickly and is sort of just like a fun popcorn entertainment kind of ride, which I suppose you can see this as kind of. But I don't know, the underdeveloped characters and plot. There's one plot thread in particular, and maybe I missed something, but it just feels like it just kind of completely got abandoned, and we never came back to it. So that was a bit strange to see. If you do go and see Morbius in cinemas, though, I wouldn't recommend seeing it in cinemas, but I wouldn't recommend seeing it, really. But if you do see it in cinemas, then there are two mid-credit scenes. I'll just say that. There are two mid-credit scenes. I hope I've remained as spoiler-free as possible with this review. That was my intention. I'm not going to give away what obviously is in the mid-credit scenes, but they're there if you want to check them out, if you want to stay behind for them. But other than that, I think that pretty much sums up my thoughts on Morbius. I've no doubt forgotten a bunch of things that I was going to mention about it. There's one pretty cool action scene in a London Underground station, I will say that. At least one sort of tracking shot that follows two characters fighting through a London Underground station, and that was nice to see. Other than that, though, I mean, it was a well done action sequence. I think, even if it is heavily CG assisted. Other than that, I think that's about all I have to say about Morbius for now. So thank you all for watching, and I think I'd probably give this about 2.5 stars out of 5, or like a 5 out of 10. It's not awful, but again, it's not great. It's kind of bland and not particularly remarkable. Anyway, thank you all for listening to this review. All our social media links are in the description. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.